Lazy is hardly a word one would associate with Nik Govier. The 40-something British PR executive has won nearly every award her profession has to offer, and yet much of her career, indeed her entire life, has been spent trying to prove to herself and childhood critics that different does not mean dumb, and that given the right challenge, she can work circles around most people.
I was classified as stupid and lazy quite often. And that has absolutely become my driving force. I'm dyslexic, and I was diagnosed with that late-ish, still as a child, but probably around 12 or 13. I don't know if you'd call it a learning difference, but it's a form of neurodiversity. I have a sleep condition called slow wave parasomnia, which means the difference between being awake and asleep is so marginal that in some ways it's amazing because I can work 24 hours. So I can literally go to sleep with a problem and have worked through it all night. And in the morning when I wake up, I know the answer. But equally, it means I need a lot of sleep and I'm often really tired. And that was diagnosed about 4 years ago. And I suspect I've got quite a few other things, but I think because I'm 47, a lot of the diagnosis or understanding of things when I was younger, when I was being tested, obviously people didn't know kind of what they know now. So I wouldn't be surprised if I've got ADHD as well.
Govier was fortunate in that while some people may have underestimated her, her parents never did. And they had the means to provide accommodation.
I have been able to channel my learning differences into something that has, superpowered me professionally. But that's because, I was able to be diagnosed. I was able to have the support that I needed. But I'm very conscious that there's so many people who perhaps fall under the radar, where schools don't pick it up, or even if they do, they can't afford to do the testing.
Neurodiversity manifests in myriad ways, including sometimes hidden strengths that some have called superpowers. Govier's superpower is the ability to scan lots of data and spot trends. That paid off most recently during the COVID-19 pandemic, when she was among the first in her field to help global companies address environmental, social, and governance risks, ESG, in a meaningful and substantial way.
Blurred launched in October 2018, so we hadn't been running that long before, in a year and a half or something before COVID hit. And everybody was in shock. The world was in shock, right? Everything was turned upside down. But I very quickly, with the support of my colleagues, spotted some trends. And my company before wasn't doing ESGP. We were doing strategic communications and management consultancy, but not specifically in that space. And noticed two things very quickly. And this is what I mean, is kind of data scanning and going, it's very interesting, that's very interesting, and that's really interesting. And what happens if you put these things together? And one, noticed that companies with good ESG ratings were outperforming the market during COVID because institutional investors were still ploughing money into those businesses because they scored well on certain factors that are now important. So in other words, capitalism was requiring companies to behave better in those areas. So I thought that was interesting. And then the second thing that happened was Black Lives Matters. And suddenly the S issue of ESG, a social issue, was playing out daily globally on social media as people quite rightly railed against companies who were just sharing black squares, but with no substance behind it. Where they had no diversity on their boards, or where they did nothing to support, people of color within their organization. So suddenly the light bulb went on in my brain, and it was like, this is going to become everything. And I'm hugely ethical as a human being anyway. I care about these issues. But suddenly I was like, there's a financial lever to pull here with big corporations to say, you want more cost-effective access to capital, which is the lifeblood of capitalism. You need to improve in all of these key areas. But of course, the brilliant thing about that would be my company would be helping huge global corporations become better corporate citizens. So I would sleep well at night.
Academics have hypothesized that such superpowers may be evolution in action.
It was either Oxford or Cambridge University, so extremely credible. And they had this report and hypothesis to actually claim that dyslexics and neurodiverse people are actually evolution in practice. So actually saying, standard people have, have failed essentially, and the world is now on this point of crisis again. So it's like we're evolving, and us neurodiverse people are the new breed of people that are required to actually help create the change that's required in the future. And my kids are neurodiverse, both of them. They've got that from me. And that's what I tell them. I say, you're the X-Men, you're the Avengers. You are the people who think differently and act differently, and therefore can, be the heroes of the future.
Govier doesn't presume to suggest that the journey will be comfortable or easy. Part of her will always be that little girl accused of being stupid and lazy. But if she could go back and tell her younger self one thing, it would be this.
Just be you. Don't try and conform to the world around you. You've got everything you need. You are everything you need to be and should be. Just lean into that.
For a world of difference, I'm Brad Kuhn.